What in the world? That is the question that I'm being asked over and over and over from my clients, from my friends, from people I run into in the street. What in the world is going on? How could we, as a collective consciousness, with all of our intellectual knowledge, with all of our science-based information, with all of the desire that many of us have to live in a peaceful coexistence with each other. What in the world is happening? For those of you who don't know my work, I am Amy White. I am an intuitive medium, a channel, and a truth bomb dropper. And I work with a group of energy beings that call themselves the greater consciousness. And the greater consciousness describes themselves as all of the wisdom that ever was, all of the wisdom that will ever be, and even more importantly, all of the wisdom that is here right now in this time and space in every single one of us. It is the connection to infinite wisdom, but it is our own individual personal connection to what they lovingly call the capital T truth of who we are. And so many are asking, really, it's a collective call out right now from the consciousness, from the global consciousness, trying to figure out in the thinking way, what in the world is happening? What in the world is happening around us? How could this be what we observe? So many of you have done many years of exploration, of excavation, of coming into that finding of your inner stillness, of that oneness sensation, not just within you, but also as it ripples out to the world. So many have felt strongly that they have reached, that you have reached moments where you should be able to stand in the vibration that's here on the planet today without being disrupted by it, without being moved by it, without being caught up in the drama of it. But as I'm bringing the greater consciousness solidly into this conversation, they want to say that this is not about lack. What you are seeing outside of yourself, whether it's in your home or in your community or in the world at large, is not because of something that we as humans have done wrong. It's not because of something that has gone off the rails. It is not because of something that is setting the world up for destruction. In fact, the greater consciousness is saying it's just the opposite. When we look to explore what in the world is going on, we have to, we're invited to start at ground zero with ourselves. Because what we are seeing on the outside, and this is very hard for many humans to hear, but what you are seeing on the outside is a direct reflection of those things that live on the inside of you, each one of you, each one of you individually, but then each one of you as you join in with the collective vibration. And this is not to say that there is, as you like to term it, evil in the world or in yourself. It's not to say that things that are happening aren't disturbing. It's not to say that you want, strongly desire for things to be different for yourself and for others. One of the things that we want to say right off the bat is that each one you hear watching and listening and consuming the series, those in your family, your neighbors, your community, people you don't know in the world, each one is coming at their life, is dancing with in their life the way that they best can. The way that they best can. We want you to hear this, and we can feel the resistance within this. And we understand that if we were standing where you are, viewing life through the filters of your experience, your patterning, your conditioning, the way you were taught, it is easy to judge right and wrong, good and evil, light and darkness. And we are not here to convince you that those things aren't real, because what you believe and what you see is your reality. But what we are here to invite you to be open to the possibility is that what you are seeing, viewing, hearing, consuming news, media, conversations, debate, is a reflection of all that you are. It's a merging of the human self and the soul self in this very moment. This is not a blame. This is not a judgment. Each and every human right now on this planet is contributing to what is being seen externally. And there has been a long, long desires collectively for things to change, for things to seem better, appear better, feel better. But we want to remind you that you cannot drive everyone else's car in a way, in a direction, in a lane that allows you to feel better. We love the analogy because it makes so much sense to you when you hear this, that you truly need, that you truly desire to drive your own car. Not in the race car driver way, but in a way that feels good to you, that feels authentic to you, that feels like you are co-creating the path, the road, the lanes that you're traversing with your vehicle. And while we understand that you can argue that, well, when I'm driving my car, I have to be aware of everyone else around me. And when someone cuts me off, I have to be aware of that. And when someone is tailgating me, I have to be aware of that. But what we want you to understand is that, yes, of course, those things happen when you're on the road, when you're driving your car amongst all of the other cars, vehicles that are on the freeway. But we want to remind you that it is what happens in those moments of the contrast, of the other driver perhaps not paying attention, or intentionally or unintentionally making a move with their vehicle. It is in what follows that, how you bring that into your system and decide in that moment what's happening. Because if everyone would just stay in their lanes and drive the car the way you drive your car, pay attention, don't be on the cell phone, don't be distracted, don't be under the influence, don't be, then my car and my ride and my travels will be smooth. There is a lot of that thinking right now. You can use whatever analogy applies to you, right? When you are in a place of need for others to act a certain way so that you can feel good, then you're really not driving your own car. You're really not coming from the place of that grounded knowing, that soul knowing, which says to you, tying back to what in the world, it says to you that when you can sit in your truth, that is where the salve is. That is where the self-soothing lies. But even more than that, it's the place where you can stand strongly in the who you are. And the things that happen outside of you, both will have less of an impact on how you hold your center, but will also start to shift. It doesn't mean that the things that you see that are not feeling good will change necessarily, but they will. But it is the fact that you will start to mirror different things back. And in that mirroring of different things back, you cannot not see things in a different way. It can be as simple as the hummingbird hovering outside your window, or the way the sunlight comes into your room, or a sweet smile you share with a stranger as you're walking past. These small evidence-based view of your own mirror start to show you a different way. Now, we know that you want to know what in the world, why. Perhaps it's why did we create this as a consciousness? Perhaps it's why is this happening? Very often, as humans, we look back at history and we say we should be further along. We should be more evolved. We have so much information. We have history to look back on. But we want to remind you that in the looking back, you're looking at a past which is nothing but vaporware. It was moments in time that happened and were gone. Moments in time that had impact and were gone. You have the forward motion, the forward vantage point. But the looking back doesn't serve what you think it does because it keeps humans in the cycle of repeating experiences because those are the data points in which you are basing your reality. This happened, so this must happen again. Or this happened. So it is repeating now. We want to remind you that in the looking back, you can focus your attention also on the progress, to touch into mile markers that can help to solidify the evolution that has occurred, the things at your disposal, information, technology, different ways of forming community online, not even in person, and yet deeply connected relationships can form. There has been exponential progress in what humans would call a good way. The results of that have created a stronger desire for more, for more. We want more of that. We want equal rights. We want equanimity. We want connection, kindness, compassion on a larger scale. We want technology to be used for what you deem good, what you deem supportive. And that is all in the process of unfolding. But there is also a side of this coin where, in order to start to see the manifestations of your personal and the collective desires, things need to shift. Things need to crumble. Things need to be leveled. There are things that you beautiful, beautiful beings have created that have also created bondage, that have allowed for there to be power struggles, authoritarian figures that you, because of your beliefs, because of your patterning, because of the way that things always were, you've readily given your power away to. And now, what is happening in the world around you, the microcosm of your world, the macrocosm of the world, is the unfolding of your strongest desire. Now, we do not in any way intend to lessen or to take away from some of the things that are happening, or any of the things that are happening for that matter, that are causing pain, that are causing deep fear, that are causing anger, hatred. But we are saying that whether you like it or not, the changes are happening. We want to talk about a very well-known lecturer, Alan Watts. And Alan says, you cannot appreciate art without recognizing the canvas that the art is on, or the medium for which that art has been created upon. You cannot recognize the stars without recognizing the darkness. These are quips, perhaps. These are simple analogies. And we are not telling you anything that you don't already know. But what we are coming to you with is the opportunity to look at these perhaps simple statements in a new way. Because we are saying that right now on your planet, in the midst of all of it, the spin, the stillness, the storms, the calm, your deepest prayers, requests, desires are coming to fruition. That is what in the world is happening. Now, very often we're asked through Amy as she's working with her clients, but also because we're not exclusive to Amy. We hear the questions being asked. We know how deeply so many of you want to be part of this change, viscerally, physically. We're not saying you cannot. And we're definitely not saying that being part of the change is not important or not necessary. You came here at this time and space to not just hide in your homes under your blankets while you watch through your eyes at the tumult that is occurring on your planet. Each one of you came consciously. You raised your hand high. Pick me, pick me. This opportunity will allow me to embody my truth in a deep, deep way, an evolution of my soul in a way that could not happen other than as it is happening. You picked this time and space to be here for this transformation. What in the world is happening? Your invitation to greater transformation, even more, to a greater coming home, coming into contact with that deep truth of who you are, not just as a human, but who you are as the human and the soul together in the same moment, in the same experience. Now, others have said, especially in what you call spiritual realms, teachers, sages, gurus, that you're not here to resist. You are not here to push against what is happening. But we want to clarify that because, yes, there is a truth in this. Resistance causes humans to feel pain, sorrow, fear, despair. It's a cause and effect. You push against what you don't want, and it creates an inner turmoil. And sometimes you push against something hard enough that it creates not just an inner turmoil, right? Because it's all reflecting back that you start to see very personal examples of that turmoil in your life. So then how do you affect what in the world is happening? Because we can feel the strong desire to affect change. And as we said a moment ago, to be part of the change. Very wise words. Be the change you want to see in the world. But what we invite you to consider, just to let it, as you say, swish around in your mouth a little bit. We'll say swish around in your heart a little bit. Can you be present to what is and feel into the what change you can be part of? And this is not an invitation for everyone to take up arms. This is not an invitation to go out and scream back at the loud forces that they are wrong. Though those things are not bad or good, it is an invitation to feel into what superpowers. We love when Amy finds that word. What superpowers do you have here in this time and space that affects change? There will be those of you who take up signs, who go to protests and marches, who call their representatives, call their Congress people, call. And we understand that this conversation is very, in some ways, US centric, but whatever the call, whatever the writing, whatever the grabbing signs, using your voice, we invite you to be open to the possibility that you can do that from your knowing, from your truth, from this beautiful heart space, which is your consciousness mind, for lack of a better way to describe it. When you find resonance with a way to affect change, that is your calling, your action for this moment. It's not as black and white as humans want it to be. It's so much more layered and complex because we want to remind you that rescuing an animal, feeding the sick, giving a mom a break from their children for a little bit of time helping out a colleague, smiling at a stranger, picking up a piece of trash. Those actions coming from your knowing space, your heart space, have an even bigger, exceptionally bigger impact on what in the world is happening right now than coming at something from a place only of your thinking mind, from a place of only thinking your belief is right, their belief is wrong. The only way to make people listen is to speak louder. But you know, when you come at it from fear, from lack, from scarcity, I will not lose my rights. It's a very different energy than how can I use my superpowers to ensure that the life I want to live in my world, in my truth, the world and change that I want to see outside of myself? How can I use my superpowers to add to the flow of resistance-free transformation? We want to revisit this idea of the necessary contrast, which, by the way, for those who are looking back at history to recount and review and reassess, we want to remind you that these things have been part of the change, the transformation, the calling out. Do not be dismayed by what you see today. You can find the beautiful experiences in this moment. And we want you to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, because we know that when you look for the glimmers, when you look for the sparkles that are there right now, right in front of you, a children's laugh, a dog's bark, the sound of a train in the distance, the quiet, peaceful moment that you can allow right as you tap into those things, the what you can do for what is happening in the world will be so clear. And as we said, when you pick up your protest sign, coming from that place, looking at the view through the lens of love, of community, of gathering together for the highest good of all, then when you go and lend your voice there in that way, you are not meeting it with the resistance and the anger and the pushing against that doesn't get you to the place of feeling connected to all that is. Oh, we can feel this. A greater consciousness. Do you see this? And do you see that? And what about this thing right here? I cannot even have the same relationship with my loved ones any longer because the divide between us has gotten so big. And you're saying, just come into my truth. And that chasm will heal. That crevasse will close. We are saying that when you act from that place of truth, use another word. When you act from that place of love, of being love, of embodying love, those gaps will close, or those that cannot be in the light that you are shining will vibrate themselves out of it, and it will not have the same reaction and response from you. Now, take that to a broader perspective. So, greater consciousness, you're saying that if I can act from this place of love, the love that I am, I can impact what in the world is going on right now. Yes. Not only, we love this so much for you, right? Not only do you have an impact on it, in your consistent practice of it, you are lighting the way for others to come into their truth, not by forcing them, not by witnessing to them, not by books and quotes and passages. We're reminded of a saying that you use in a funny way. You say, never in the history of time did telling someone to calm down result in calming. Never in the history of time will telling someone, one's groups of people, countries, parties, that they are wrong, bad, unjust. Never can it result in change. It will not result in goodness or justness or convincing someone to change their belief. You all know because you have your wagon that we all as humans, you all as humans drag with you, full of the beliefs that you hold on to so tightly. And so does each person, each human, doesn't matter where they are in the world, every single one of you has been conditioned to believe. You've been trained to believe. There's been packages of belief that have been handed from generation to generation to generation down the lines. So often, not even questioned because they're so solidly rooted in you. So we invite you to take yourself as the example. When someone that you come into contact with has a differing opinion and they really, really want you to believe it, most of the time, your reaction is not, oh, their belief is right and mine is wrong. And we want to remind you that it doesn't matter how much work you've done, work, right? How much excavating you've done, how much you've tried to lobotomize your ego. When a belief is embedded in your DNA, you are not going to simply change your mind. And so what results is the debate, the resistance, the divide. Now, this does not mean that there isn't room in those belief systems for you to glean the gems of, the nuggets of information that you haven't maybe considered that way, that you hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about, perhaps something you had never even come into contact with before. This goes directly back to what we were saying earlier about how you get to take information in, swish it around, see what gems, what sparkles, what glitters for you, not in a judgment way of, oh, I'm wrong, but in a way of, oh, that's really interesting. Here is a little bit that I hadn't yet considered. And then each one of you individually, because that's how it works, gets to take that nugget and add it in to another aspect of your truth, or to leave it because it's not for you. Now we want to bring up this piece of the conversation because it's very important. We are not talking about backing down. We are not talking about being agreeable, especially in those situations. That is not what we're talking about, because when you are faced with something that feels in contrast to the truth of you, your truth, the truth of who you are, and you shift away from your truth to please another or to not cause more conflict, then you're not able to fully appreciate the opportunity to come into deeper center. And when you're denying any part of yourself, we cannot say this strongly enough. You are not in wholeness, which means it is much harder for you to come into contact with that love that you are, with the capital T truth of who you are. And it's harder for you to ripple out that love onto the planet. You are not doing anything wrong. You came here to experience these exact moments. You came here for the contrast. Because without the contrast, as we've been saying, you cannot see the good, the sun, the stars. If you were to just stay in the purest energy form that you come from, that you will return to, that is here as part of this experience here. So. The contrast was the invitation. The pure energy that you are, were, am, could not evolve, transform at this level without the contrast. We were born into contrast. We were energy, and we took on these meat suits. And it started from our first breath. And it will end at our last. And here is where you get to play. So what in the world is happening? Everything. All at once. Everything. Love is happening. Love.